Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 303. Today we are talking all about meltdowns versus shutdowns in the second episode of our 5-episode series, all about nervous system regulation, PDA, anxiety, and all the different challenges that can contribute to kiddos struggling to regulate their emotions and their nervous systems. Today specifically, we're talking about the difference between meltdowns versus shutdowns, as well as different strategies and tools you can use right now to co-regulate your kids, help them regulate themselves, and learn to advocate for themselves. This is a jam-packed episode full of lots and lots of tricks and tips and ideas that you can implement right away. So you are going to want to save this episode and hopefully share it with a friend whose kiddo might also need some of these regulation strategies. Before we begin though, I want to say thank you again to our sponsors for this episode. As usual, CTC Math, if you need a great math curriculum, I promise you, you cannot go wrong with CTC Math. We've been using them for years. I love them. So check them out at ctcmath.com. Let them know that I sent you. I also want to highlight Curiosity Post, our brand new snail mail club for kids. This is really exciting because so many families are talking about getting kids offline and even getting adults offline, getting ourselves offline and into more analog type situations and ideas. And this fits right in there. Who doesn't love to go to the mailbox and see an envelope addressed just to them? Inside every month's mailing, your kiddo will get a 4x4 card. It's a collectible card, heavy-duty cardstock with about 12 journal prompts on one side, all related to this month's theme, so they can journal. On the other side of that card, they're going to get a hands-on activity or game or craft or recipe or something to do that relates to the theme as well. In January, our first month, it's a game, so that's super fun. They will also get a small mini journal that they can use if they want to for doodling or drawing or to write their answers to the journal prompts that come in the envelope. And then finally, they will receive a themed sticker of the month that's unique to that month's theme. They will also get 2 to 3 other surprises. So in January, you might have seen a sneak peek on social media. Kids will get 2 additional winter themed stickers along with a fidget strip, which is just a rectangular sticker that you can put on a computer keyboard, a desktop, a tablet, or a phone that has rough edges or a rough top, a rough texture, so that if your kiddo fidgets or needs the input, the sensory input of texture, they can rub their fingers and their hands along it. So that's what they'll get this month, all packaged tucked inside a letter from me, written to them and hand signed, all about the theme for the month. So they'll get that every single month. You can subscribe monthly or quarterly or annually. And we'd love to have you. I think it's really a good idea to help kids think about their emotions, think about their feelings, think about what makes them tick, journal about that, really start to do things off the computer. Now that said, we still have the Learners Lab, an online community for families, because we recognize that not everybody has community of neurodivergent families within their geographic location. And so we still need community, and sometimes we still need community online to fill that space. And all of the themes in Curiosity Post complement the themes that go on in the Learners Lab that month, and vice versa. Each are standalones. Both can go really beautifully together. So check those out at the links in the show notes, and we would love to have you. All right, let's pop those earbuds in and get ready for today's episode. Hey there, if your kiddo can go from 0 to 60, or they can suddenly go silent and disappear into a cave of their own making, both are communication. Today we're going to decode the meltdown versus the shutdown and build two different response plans that can protect your child and your relationship with one another. Welcome back to the podcast. We are diving into episode 2 of our series here on anxiety, PDA, emotional regulation. And you will leave, hopefully, at the end of this episode with a quick look for list to tell the difference between a meltdown or a shutdown, along with a step-by-step response that you can use today for either of the two different types of behaviors you might see. You'll also leave with some co-regulation tools that don't require a full sensory gym, just whatever you have around the house, and kind of an aftercare and repair the connection plan that you can use right away. We have a couple good resources on the website. I'm going to link to them in the show notes for this episode, but just so you're aware of them, we have an anxiety toolkit that is a physical deck of cards. You can order it on the website in the shop, and it will be mailed to you at home. And it's a physical deck of cards that is made out of durable playing card material, clasped together with binder ring. It's 96 different activities to help your kiddo manage their big emotions and big feelings. It's called the Anxiety Toolkit because it was created for anxious kids with them in mind, but all of the different activities in the Anxiety Toolkit can be used with kiddos for all manner of emotional regulation needs, and it's divided into 4 sections. Quick, easy things you can do right now to calm your kiddo down, things you can do when you're out and about and on the go, things you can do at home that maybe require a little bit of extra preparation, things that are great to do before bedtime, along with some mindfulness activities. So they're all color-coded, they're really easy to use and implement. And they've been a great seller throughout the years. People snap them up at conventions when they can see them and hold them. Almost everybody who sees them in person picks up a deck. But you can check them out either just going to the website and clicking on the shop link, or going to the show notes for this episode and scrolling down to the links at the bottom of the post. They'll be linked directly there. We also have some affirmation cards that are really good for kiddos who struggle with big feelings, that are a printable deck that you can print, laminate, and cut out yourself, as well as some other sensory tools that you can print and use at home. All right, let's dive in right away to the nervous system, what it is, what it means, and why we might have some challenges with it, and really what the difference is between a meltdown and a shutdown. Okay, so when we're talking about our nervous system being on overload and having a meltdown, we're talking about fight and flight energy, that energy your body gets when it feels like it's in danger. It might be loud, it might be fast, it might be big, like yelling, bolting if your kid is a runner, hitting, ripping paper, lashing out in some physical or verbal way. A shutdown is the other side of that coin that happens when your body feels like it's in danger. It's the freeze or the fawn energy. It's quiet, it's slow, it's small. Kids are retreating into themselves, they're hiding, they're going mute, they're nodding okay just to escape the situation. Neither of these are choices or misbehavior. When the nervous system feels threatened, our body's natural defense is to go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And so we want to make sure that we're recognizing this is not misbehavior. This is not a choice. This is the body yelling that it's just too much. Maybe it's too much sensory input. Maybe it's uncertainty, too much social load. It's a demand threat. It's fatigue, hunger, or in more significant or serious cases, it could be RSD or anxiety, PDA, oppositional behavior, stuff like that. Our job is to think in our head. We want to regulate our kids. We want to help them regulate by co-regulating. We want to relate to them, help them understand that we understand, and then, only then, do we want to reason with them. So safety first, preserving their dignity and their esteem, and then we want to help them by reasoning them through it. So regulate, relate, then reason. So remember that. All right, let's think about some things we can look at, like really quickly and in a nutshell, to get a good picture right off the bat of what our kids are facing. Some of the early cues of a meltdown include faster speech, a clenched jaw, pacing, their breath might get shallow, their play might get louder, more frantic, more edgy. They might be swatting at or lashing out towards a sibling or you even, and their eyes could be scanning for exits, trying to retreat or bolt, or thinking about it. Some early cues that our kids might be going into a shutdown phase, they may get very quiet. They may start to avoid eye contact. They may curl up or bury into a hoodie or some other clothing or a blanket perhaps. They may slow down their movements. Their answers might shrink down to 1 or 2 word statements, or maybe no words at all, just nodding or motions. They may even stare off into space, like blankly. Some of the environmental tells, some of the things that can challenge our kids are like a big room, maybe at a co-op or a cafeteria type situation, like maybe you're in a museum and you go into the dining hall of it, or echoey rooms, transitions sometimes, transitioning from one activity to another or from playtime to school time or vice versa. Multi-step tasks, or any hard stop, like it is time to leave right now, or you have to put the computer away. All of those can elevate the risk for our kids to be put into a nervous system challenge that triggers the feelings of being unsafe and fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So what are some things that we can do to triage these situations, like some safety activities or helps that we can use to help our kids get through it? So the first thing we can do is lower the damage, especially if our kids are young, are struggling to regulate their fight response. So we want to see a situation where maybe we're removing the breakables, we're opening exits, we're giving space between ourselves and our kids, or our kids and their siblings, asking the siblings to leave the room for right now. We want to use short sentences, low voice, a slow body. We don't want to give any new demands in those moments. We want to talk to the other kids and say something like, hey, we're safe, and I want to talk to your brother or your sister privately. So I'd like you to head to your reading spot, set a timer for 15 minutes, and I'll come back and get you when time's up. If you're triggered, if possible, tag out. The old game tag where you could tag out or not even tag. Maybe you're playing basketball and you tag out and let someone else go on the court for a bit. Tag out if possible. If your spouse or a grandparent or someone is there too, see if you can let them take over for a few minutes to just give yourself and your child both a break. But if that's not possible, go quiet, focus on your own breathing with a rhythm, maybe inhale for a 4 count, exhale for a 6 count, and keep doing that till you're able to regulate your breathing and your own body's responses. And this is just to lower the aggression if your kids deal with that. It's especially important for the meltdowns, for the fight and flight responses. And so we want to make sure that we're moving slowly, containing the situation, and then simplifying when we're doing that. We can say to our kid, perhaps, I'm seeing fight, flight energy, so we're going to choose to move slowly, calm ourselves down, contain, so we know that each of us are safe, and then we're going to simplify so we can figure out what we can do to move on to the next step. Likewise, if you're seeing like freeze or fawn energy, you could use a similar type of conversation and say to your kiddo, I'm sensing freeze energy. Maybe you can reduce what you're doing right now, and then you as a parent can invite them in to tell you maybe what they're feeling, or for a hug or a cuddle, and then you go into protection mode and then help them choose something that they can do next. Okay, so let's talk protocols. What's going to happen if your kiddo, so that's the triage, like what you're going to do right away to calm things down. But let's talk about what's going to happen when your kiddo is actually in a meltdown phase. We want to discharge the energy, contain the risk, and co-regulate. That's the goal. So we want to tamp it down, slow them down, contain any risk to themselves or others, and then co-regulate. First, we want to regulate their body. And we can do this as a co-regulation activity where we're doing it with them to model and to encourage, especially if they're younger. So you want to choose one or two of the following things. You could do some heavy work with your kiddo. You could encourage them to push a wall, push a chair, carry a laundry basket, push it across the floor, play towel tug of war with your knees down like you're kneeling. Just some kind of heavy work to get those feelings out. You could also use a crash pad if you've got like a big bean bag or some couch cushions, things like that. Years and years and years and years ago, when my kids were very young, we had lots of pent up energy, and a couple of my kids who were prone to the fight back meltdown. And we bought a very large, like love seat sized beanbag that like 15 years later, it's still in great shape. In fact, it's in such great shape, I would recommend it to anybody. I'll drop a link to it in the show notes for this episode, the exact one that we have, because it's still available on Amazon. I will say it was pricey. It was several $100s, but I had read really great reviews. And so I used this one, or I purchased this one because of the reviews. And if we factored in or calculated the amount of times we've used it as a crash pad, as just sitting, as curling up, reading a book, whatever, over the 15 years, it's like pennies on the dollar for the amount of time we've spent. So totally worth it. So you could get a crash pad out, or just couch cushions if you don't have one, lay it on the floor, and then one person at a time offer to let them jump or crash into it. Make sure that you're making this as an offer and not saying you have to jump and crash. This is one of those things that you're offering them so they can regulate themselves. You could also do some kind of patterned movement to get their brain engaged, because sometimes the brain being engaged in like a counting activity or a patterning activity will help it smooth out. And then just breaking out of the loop of the dysregulated behavior can get them moving on to the next right step. So you could do something like marching to the count of 20, pacing a loop with you matching the steps, or you pacing with them matching the steps. You could also introduce some water or some temperature changes. So like cool cloth on the back of their neck, some ice water, drinking through a straw, taking a warm bath, a shower, if it's snowy, going out and playing in the snow, something that changes up the temperature. Because again, sometimes it's just about getting the body out of whatever loop it's in to help them move forward. So in order to discharge that energy, contain the risk, and co-regulate, one of the first things you can do is choose one or two regulation activities like heavy work, a crash pad, patterned movement, or temperature or water stuff. Okay, the second thing you can do is start using language that can land with them, be calming, and be used over and over again. So one of the things, and I use this one all the time and have for at least a dozen years with a couple of my kids. I say, I'm here, you're safe. I'm here, we're safe. I've got you, you're safe. I say that over and over again. Some of my kids like touch when they are in a dysregulated pattern. And so for those kids, I'll rub their back, I'll hold them, I'll give them a squeezy hug, we call it, and I'll say over and over again, I'm here, you're safe. I am here, you're safe. Some of them don't like touch, so I'll do the same thing, just being in the room with them. You could also say, your body is feeling loud to yourself right now. Let's try pushing or crashing into something and see if we can quiet down your body. Something else that you can say to your kiddos, especially if they're young, especially if they are prone to breaking things or tearing things or something physical like that or destructive like that, you can start just, again, these are mantras that you're going to say over and over again. Like I say, I'm here, you're safe. Hands are for walls, I'm going to move the breakables. Or hands are not for ripping or tearing or destruction. Let's write or color or draw. So making sure that they know I'm going to move the breakables so you keep yourself safe, you keep me safe, and we take care of the things that we own, and I'll come back and I'll help you regulate when you're ready. You also want to use calm, firm boundaries. Again, this is just stuff you can say over and over again in a calming voice. I remember being at a convention one time speaking about anxiety and meltdowns and challenging behaviors that come out of those kinds of meltdowns. And I said things like this, And a mom came up to me after and said, I wish I could just keep you in my pocket and have some of these lines or some of these ideas to just pull out anytime I need them. And I'll be honest, it was that conversation that sparked the idea to create the anxiety toolkit, the card deck I talked about earlier. It's got 96 different ways that you can help your kiddo regulate. And some of the things in there are sayings like this. So it's definitely something, if this is resonating with you, to check out. It's really affordable and you can get it right in my shop. And actually, my anxious daughter, who helped create it, is the one that packs it up for me. So that's fun. You get an anxious kiddo helping other anxious kiddos, which is a beautiful thing, I think. Okay, so when you're using some of these boundary statements, you're going to stay calm, you're going to stay firm, and you're going to say things like, I'm not going to let you hurt yourself. I'm not going to let you hurt me. We can hit the pillow. We can push on the wall. We can do push-ups or sit-ups. We can go run. If you have a punching bag, you can punch the punching bag. You can crash into the crash pad, but I'm not going to let you hurt yourself. I'm not going to let you hurt me. I'm not going to let you hurt your siblings. Stay firm, draw the boundary. And this is even a good thing to set up before a meltdown happens. Make sure you're talking to your kids about some of our values. We're not going to destroy property. We're not going to hurt one another. We're not going to hurt ourselves. Here are some things I may do when you're struggling with your regulation so that you can be sure that you don't hurt yourself or hurt others or destroy something that you might regret destroying later. So you can say, we're moving to the soft room. Maybe you don't have breakables in the kids' rooms. You have their beds, their stuffed animal, you have their clothing, you have a crash pad or a bean bag. And so we're going to move to your bedroom right now, or the basement, or wherever you have your space set up. Or I'm going to move the breakables and I'd like you to just sit there. You can do push-ups, you can do chair pulls, whatever you need in the meantime. But we're going to make sure that we keep our property safe and our bodies safe. If your kiddos are shutting down and their energy is dropping, you can start by saying to them, what color is your body feeling right now? Green, yellow, red. And help them explain to you how they're feeling. Now, the green, yellow, red feeling continuum is from a 5-part series that we did a while ago about sensory needs and about body movement and things like that. I will link to that series in the show notes for this episode so that if you want a more detailed understanding of the green, yellow, and red zones of regulation, you could also look up zones of regulation. I've got plenty of posts about it on my site, but it's not my invention. We learned about zones of regulation from my daughter's occupational therapist when she was 3, and we've been using versions of it ever since and making it our own. But you can go listen in a podcast episode, again, that I'll link in the show notes. All of the links are at the bottom of the article. So I usually do some kind of recap in the show notes of the podcast for those who like to read or go deeper, along with some extra information. And then at the bottom, along with the player, so you can listen to it, are a list of links that all relate to either the sponsors of the podcast or the topic of the podcast. The links that relate to the topic of the podcast are much longer than the sponsors. So there's tons and tons of resources on every podcast show notes post. So you can check that out if you want to learn more about the zones of regulation. But it's a great tool to be able to help them help you understand where their body is in that moment. Then you can move to a quiet, repetitive action. Maybe you're sorting cards or kneading putty or sweeping or doing any of the different activities in the anxiety toolkit that are made for calming. The section of activities for right before bed are good for this when you're in this and you need to calm down. Okay, so those were meltdown protocols. Let's talk about some different protocols for shutdowns. When your kid is completely shutting down, they're in freeze or fawn, we want to make sure that our goal for this is reducing input, restoring agency, and keeping connections strong. So first, we want to reduce input. We want to dim the lights. We want to cut background noise. We want to step away from the crowds if we're not in a place where we can dim lights and cut off noise. We want to maybe offer headphones or a hood, a weighted lap pad, a weighted blanket, or a firm pillow. For years and years, one of my kiddo with anxiety and sensory processing challenges, struggled out in public with some of these activities, not all the time, but periodically. She had a weighted blanket at home. We kept a weighted lap pad in the car that we could easily bring in at restaurants and just tuck on her lap. We kept headphones, but she often wore hoodies or wore a jacket with a hood so she could pull it down. She would travel with in her bag a couple of graphic novels that she liked, so she could just lose herself in the pictures or the story. She would draw or doodle, so we had a little art book and a pen or a pencil or crayons. So offer her something to reduce the input that's going on. Invite your kiddos into some of these activities. You could present a choice card if you're home or you have the anxiety toolkit with you, and you just do this silently. And so they can choose. Do they want some water? Do they want a hoodie? Do they want a quiet corner? Do they want to leave? Do they want to count to 10? Do they want to try this breathing exercise? Give them some choices quietly so we're not drawing more attention to them. And then place a grounding object near them or give them a grounding object. Maybe it's a soft stone, a worry stone that they can rub. Maybe it's putty. Maybe it's a favorite plush animal or stuffy. All of my kids have those weighted warmies that you can warm up in the microwave. So maybe it's a weighted stuffed animal. And then co-regulate alongside your kiddo. Sit nearby, angle your body slightly away but close in proximity. Breathe audibly but softly. You can try again that breathing in for a 4 count, breathing out for a 6 count. Or for my younger kids, I like to say, smell the flower, blow out the birthday candles. So breathe in through your nose slowly and draw it out so you're really getting the smell of that flower, and then blow out hard so you're blowing out the birthday candle. Use gentle language. If you use any language, you can just sit quietly. Again, I'm here, you're safe, no rush. I'll sit with you for as long as you need me. Squeeze my hand once for yes, twice for no. Would you like me to speak for you? If you need to talk to adults or other teachers, say you're at a co-op or a museum class or something like that, you can just simply say, we're taking a quiet break for a moment. We'll be back in a minute. And do what you need. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you. Your job is to protect your kiddo and support your kiddo in whatever way they need in order to help them grow into the best version of themselves. And so for some of our neurodivergent kids, this means speaking up for them, advocating for them, so they learn through your modeling how to speak up for themselves, how to advocate for themselves, and how to do the things that they need to support their own nervous systems. Okay, so let's talk about math. Specifically, let's talk about finding a program that actually works for your unique homeschoolers. In our house, we've been using CTC Math for years, and even though I am so appreciative that they sponsor this podcast, I am a paying customer. I'm still a paying customer even with their sponsorship because it's just that good, and I love supporting great companies with great programs. With 2 kids still at home, both with very different learning needs, CTC Math has been the flexible and dependable solution that I keep coming back to. One of my kiddos needs more time to process math concepts, and I love that she can move through the lessons at her own pace without feeling rushed or behind. My other kiddo, he flies. He jumps straight to the end of unit tests to see what he already knows, and then we only focus on the lessons that fill the gaps. That kind of customization is gold when you're homeschooling gifted or twice exceptional kids. CTC Math gives you the access to every grade level, from kindergarten through 12th grade with your subscription, so that your child can accelerate, review, or jump around based on their own needs, not based on some rigid curriculum structure. And because it's video-based with clear instruction and auto-graded lessons and quizzes, it frees me up to support my kids without being chained to a textbook, teacher's manual, or whiteboard. So whether your child needs more time or is racing ahead, you can tailor it all with CTC Math. Check it out at ctcmath.com. You will see why so many homeschool families trust it. And if you've got quirky math learners like I do, I think you're going to love it. If you have any questions about CTC, like I said, we've been using it for years in our homeschool, and I encourage you to reach out and ask me any questions that you have. If you do pop over there, let them know that I sent you, and let them know that you appreciate their ongoing support of homeschoolers everywhere, especially those of you here at Raising Lifelong Learners. All right, let's get back to today's episode. When they start to reanimate, when they start to get out of the shutdown mode, you can offer one tiny action. Do they want a sip of water? Do they want to stand up and stretch? Do they want to walk to the doorway and back? And then give them one predictable next step. Okay, let's put your headphones away now. We'll watch from the back of the room this time. Some of the most common mistakes that we make as parents in any of these situations is we start peppering them with questions right away. We may touch them uninvited. So especially when they're in shutdown mode, do you want me to touch you? Do you want me to hug you? Do you want me to rub your back? If they say no or don't answer, don't do it. Interpreting compliance, okay, as capacity. They may say okay, but they may not really have the energy or the ability to do what it is you're asking them to do in that moment, and that's okay. And then maybe forcing speech. Sometimes we want our kids to speak up for themselves, but they're just not ready. And we need to remember that even though they may be whatever age they may be, their emotional regulation, their maturity, their social and emotional abilities may be younger than their age chronologically suggests. I've talked a lot on this podcast and on the website about asynchrony. Our kids develop in an asynchronous fashion. They're like many ages at once. So maybe when they're animated and excited, they can talk to you like a little 20-year-old professor or 30-year-old professor or 20-year-old college student. But then when your 12-year-old is in meltdown or shutdown mode, they cannot. They're more like 6 or 7 or whatever. We want to make sure that we're meeting them where they are in whatever area we're currently meeting them and helping them to learn to speak up for themselves and advocate. All right, some adjustments we might need to make if our kids have certain challenges that they face every day, like PDA, autism, sensory challenges, anxiety. We want to remember, especially in PDA profiles, that demand equals threat. If we're overly demanding or asking them questions or assuming compliance, we're actually triggering a deeper fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. And so we want to lower the demand with options and opt-outs. So do you want one more minute before you go back in, or do you just want to skip it all together and go take a nap? Whatever it is, are we skipping? Are we going to go in? Do you just want another minute before to see if you're ready? Swap imperatives for invites. Instead of saying you need to, you could say something like, it could be helpful if you tried. And you phrase it differently so it feels less demanding and feels more like an invitation. And then do some collaborative scripting. Maybe agree on a code word with your kiddo before they get into any kind of meltdown or shutdown, like puppy dog or firefighter or, I don't know, truck, whatever it is. That means I'm over capacity and I need support right now, so that they know that they can give you the code word. And then you'll be able to help them troubleshoot from that point. Okay, some of the things that you can do today to help you get ready for the next time your kiddo is in a meltdown or shutdown phase. Like I said, check out the show notes for this episode because there's going to be lots of resources linked, including those cards I talked about, including the Learners Lab, our community for families who are homeschooling neurodivergent, gifted, twice exceptional kiddos, and some other resources as well, so that you can maybe make the choice to be a part of those communities or purchase some of those resources or just print some of the resources that are available for free on the site, so you have them ahead of time. You can also go back and re-listen or listen for the first time to some of the previous episodes. For example, one of the things that you can do to build your toolkit today is to create a heavy work menu. So a menu that includes things that are heavy work and can regulate them, like wall pushes, chair pushbacks, carrying laundry, door frame presses, push-ups, sit-ups, those kinds of things. And we have some of these resources already created for you as a freebie in the 5-episode series we did all about creating a sensory diet. And so if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to that episode, it would definitely be a great one to support the building of your co-regulation toolkit. And I will link to all 5 episodes in that series on the show notes, so you don't have to hunt all around. You can just go to one place. Also, you can create a quiet corner, maybe a little corner of their room or the basement or the family room that has a lamp instead of overheads, a basket with putty, soft textures, stuffed animals, noise protection, headphones, audiobooks, a water bottle, some crunchy snacks, things like that. You can create a list of different rhythm actions that they can do. Maybe keep it in the calm down corner so they can pull it out of that basket, like rocking in a chair, doing a slow count march, listening to a metronome at 60 or 70 BPMs for breathing and breathing along with the beat. Maybe some visuals that show like breathing charts, or a visual that shows like green, yellow, and red body feelings. There are lots of visuals that include patterned breathing, like 4-square breathing and figure 8 breathing. You can search for some of those on my site as well as on the internet. And then maybe a parent regulation guide. So you know, like even just a couple of notes, so you know what to do in that situation. And again, the anxiety toolkit's great for this, but maybe a hand on your chest, take a long inhale, a long exhale, practice some of those common phrases like I'm here, you're safe, those kinds of things. Now, later, once everything is calmed back down and everybody is re-regulated, you're going to repair, you're going to reflect, and you're going to reset. So when you're repairing the situation, so later when everybody's calm, you're going to say something like, that was hard. My job is safety. Your job is to listen to your body. We did it. That's amazing that we were able to regulate and co-regulate in that situation because it was tough. So you're acknowledging, you're affirming, and you're validating the need to be able to have those tools at your fingertips. You could also say, if you slipped, because I'm human, I slip all the time. You could say something like, I'm so sorry. I raised my voice. I will try to be quieter next time. I got triggered. I was feeling frustrated. I should have kept my calm. I should have done my breathing before I spoke to you, but I slipped up and I raised my voice. I'll try not to do that again. Thank you so much for forgiving me. So you're repairing whatever happened and you're helping them understand how they repaired whatever happened. You can also reflect on things. I would say if you're reflecting on what happened, you want to keep it at 2 questions or 2 comments max. You don't want to overly analyze and evaluate what went down because you don't want to draw too much attention to it. You want to just reflect and move on. So maybe you say, what helped a little bit when we were doing that? Was it the breathing exercises? Was it the heavy work? Was it remembering to identify if your body was in red, yellow, or green? And then give them the choices, listen and say, okay, that's great. And then you could also say, what should we try differently next time? Do you have any ideas? I've thought maybe we could try this or this and see if they like that or if they can come up with something else that might help them. And then finally, reset. Move the heavy work list to somewhere that everybody can see it so they can draw from it themselves next time. Pre-chill a water bottle so that you have it if you need to change up the temperature, give them some water to sip, put the headphones by the door so you remember to take them when you leave. Adjust the dosage of the work that you do. So maybe shorter vestibular, the motion-based activities, and more heavy work next time. But as far as the reflection goes and the reset, keep a journal or keep a log of what's working so you have some information. Even in your calendar, I've actually started writing in my own calendar something good that happened during the day and something that I want to improve on. So this could be something just like that. We had a shutdown today. We had a meltdown today. We recovered by doing 2 activities of heavy work, sitting and chilling out for a few minutes with a crunchy snack and cold water, and then doing some deep breathing and offering a choice of what activities to do next. So make sure you're reflecting so you remember what happened, because in the heat of the moment, you can't always remember. And then finally, let's troubleshoot a couple things that might happen so you're prepared. And so also you can start thinking about some of those things that could happen that you want to make sure you're troubleshooting ahead of time. So maybe they hit you. You want to block, step back, say, I'm not going to let you hit me. You can use a pillow or you can push it up against the wall. And then model it. Debrief later with a safety plan. Say, hey, when we were going through this challenge, you lashed out physically. And remember, one of our main rules is we don't hurt ourselves or other people. And so let's come up with a plan. Should we always make sure that we have a pillow nearby, or our punching stuffed animal, or our crash pad? What can we do to make sure that doesn't happen? Because I know you don't want to hurt me, and I know you don't want to hurt yourself. If you're in a public place and the meltdown or the shutdown happens, I would suggest exit fast, talk later. You don't want to go through all of the motions of figuring it out, getting to where they need to be, adding some heavy work in. You want to just say, we're going to take a lobby break. Let's go for a walk. Or, hey, let's go outside for a minute and just get out. I've told this story before at conventions, but I remember one time, one of my kiddo with anxiety, we were at an IMAX theater at the Great Lakes Science Center. And this is in Cleveland. And my kids have grown up going to the Great Lakes Science Center because I have varying ages. My oldest is 10 years older than my youngest. So there's a 10-year span across the four of them. And the Science Center was one of those places that all four of my kids' ages could be accommodated because there was something for the older one as well as play places for the little one. So they've all watched these intense IMAX movies for their whole life. And we were watching a wildlife one, and my anxious kid is very attuned to animals and wildlife. And the movie was about a chimpmunk's first winter of life. And of course, at one point, the camera pans to a predator, an owl in this case, and the music swelled and the intensity, the camera flashed back and forth, close-ups to the owl's talons and beak and the chipmunk scurrying away without realizing what's coming for it on the floor. And I could feel my kiddo next to me just clench up and dig nails into my arm. And so I was not waiting around to have the fear take hold and a meltdown or a shutdown occur. I whispered to my older two kids, who were old enough at that point to just stay in the theater, that we would meet them by the tables, which there's only one exit to that theater. Like, you enter in the bottom and you exit at the top. So they had to come out the one way, and the tables are on the way out from that theater. So I said, we'll be at the tables. Let us know what happens in the movie. So I tucked my toddler under my arms and pushed my anxious kiddo in front of me, and we just hustled out past a couple of other families and went out, and I pulled out some water or juice box or something and a crunchy snack, and I pulled out a deck of cards. We have, at that point, and still sometimes, I would keep easy games like Spot It and Set and Memory and things like that in my purse. So I pulled out Spot It, and I started dealing the cards. And we ate a snack, and we talked, and we played the game, and I said, the chipmunk's going to make it. He's not going to die because the movie's about him in his first year of life. And so we know that the chipmunk's going to survive. And she's just nodding at me, wide eyes. And so I kept saying, I bet you when your brother and sister come out, they're going to let you know that the chipmunk survived. And sure enough, they come out half an hour later, and they're like, the chipmunk survived. It was great. I can't even believe it. It was such a good movie, blah, blah, blah. And we went on. But that gave her time to regulate. That gave her time to calm down. She didn't need to see the whole movie. And we got a break in, and we talked about it later as she calmed down. So exit fast, talk later. Just get your kiddo out of the space that they're struggling in and see what you can do about regulation once you get out of there. Maybe it's a shutdown that just lasts for hours. We want to make sure that we're just there for our kids. We're giving them water, soft lighting, quiet companionship. We shorten the next day's demands to near zero so they can recover and regroup and do something fun for themselves, but we just let them know we're there. Sometimes our body just needs a couple of days, and that's okay, especially when there's a lot going on. Maybe you have some sibling jealousy. Maybe your younger kiddos or even your older kiddos perceive your attention towards their sibling as attention, and they want your attention. So we want to teach scripts. We want to help our kids understand that everyone in our family is unique, individual, and has needs, and not all of those needs are the same. Spending more time calming a meltdown doesn't mean we love the rest of them less or the one we're spending time with more. Everybody needs us differently in different seasons of life. And so we want to talk about it as much as we can. And then we want to use scripts. Mom's helping out with your brother's nervous system. And so it's going to be your turn in about 15 minutes, and then follow through. Make sure you spend some time with your other kid or kiddos after you help regulate or get your kiddo past the crisis point. Maybe you have a small special waiting basket, and those are individual puzzles or single person logic games or special books or art projects that your kids can pull from when they need to wait for you. And you can say, I need to work on this regulation or this nervous system thing right now. Go get something from the waiting basket and I will be there to check it out in about 15, 20 minutes. So we're making sure our kids know that we're giving each of them what they need and we're there for them, but then we will check back in with them after. All right. So here's what I want you to do here at the end of this episode. If you didn't listen to last week's, go back and start the series so you can listen to all of the episodes in this series, because we're going to have another episode next week all about demands, anxiety, and buy-in. We're going to talk about movement choice and tiny finishes. So I want you to make sure that you're all up to speed and ready for that. But in the meantime, maybe jot down in your journal or write it out and post it if you need to, or just remember what a meltdown looks like versus a shutdown. Assemble a go kit that you can take with you if you need to, or if your kiddos are regularly shutting down or melting down. Maybe it has headphones or earphones in it, tissues, water, thinking putty or Play-Doh, a small towel, a card game, some snacks or some drinks. Choose one meltdown move like a heavy work and one shutdown move like a reduce the stimulation and invite them to do something so that you can do that outside the house. The anxiety toolkit has a whole section when you're out and about, so you can use that if you have that tool. Pick a code word for exits, and then remember, you want to talk to them and touch base with them. And so you want to measure your success not by being perfect or not having a meltdown or a shutdown, but saying, hey, we exited quicker than we did last time, or recovery was even faster than it was before. So you're really celebrating even the small successes. Inside the Learners Lab this month, we're going to be celebrating any of these self-recovery wins. So if you're not a member yet, we'd love for you to join. You can check that out over on the show notes. Up in the top, it'll be linked in the show notes itself, but on the website, top right-hand corner says the Learners Lab. You can join month to month. You can cancel at any time. You can save a little bit of money by joining for a year. We would love to have you. We do all sorts of great clubs and classes and activities for the kids. But then we also have a whole section with group coaching for parents where we meet a couple times a month for calls. And we have just a live feed that you can ask questions in anytime. We'd love to have you in the lab and support you in that way. Don't forget that you can check all of the resources out along with the links to our sponsors. A special thanks to CTC Math for all of their support this year. And check them out at ctcmath.com. You can also find out about the Learners Lab, our brand new snail mail club for kids, Curiosity Post, where your kids get mail every single month with journaling activities, hands-on activities, a postcard that they can mail to a friend, or they can mail it back to us here at the Raising Lifelong Learners podcast if they want. Stickers and other fun surprises. We'd love to have you in that too, because it's just been so fun getting ready to mail out the first month's club to over 50 families across the United States. And we're hoping to continue to grow that network where kids are getting real mail that serves their social and emotional health and challenges them to journal and think about their feelings every single month. All right, we'll be back. Same time, same place next week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.